be able to get it up.
So that's going on.
Yeah, go ahead to the next page. Good evening. Thank you everyone for coming to and participating in our fiscal year 2026 budget committee. You've all had a chance to look it over a little bit, and hopefully we can give you a good overview tonight, and you can go at the end of this evening to with some ideas and some thoughts to come into the next meeting. So to begin with, let's do introductions. I'm Gloria Butch. I'm the City Finance Director and the Budget Committee, or the Budget Officer.
Lou Mason, citizen, member of the Budget Committee.
Mark Anderson, City Councilor.
Jenny Gilbert, Budget Committee member.
Stephen Toskey, citizen, member of the Budget Committee.
Jessica Children, Council President.
Brandon Sundin, City Councilor. Ivan Salas, Budget Committee member.
Jennifer Massey, Mayor.
Ashley Wygod, City Attorney.
Great, thank you.
City Attorney.
And
City Attorney,
yes.
that's right.
And the staff in the back?
Jennifer Johnson, Accounting.
Amy Edwards, Accounting and Budget Secretary.
And also before we get started, I'm going to declare an actual conflict of interest. So my husband is an employee of the City of St. Helens. He's a police officer. And although I'm not biased and I'm confident that I can act objectively in the best interest of the city, that when it comes to the staffing, when it comes for the St. Helens Police Department, I will not be participating in those conversations or the voting of that. So.
I'll go to the next page, Jen. So the role of the Budget Committee. The role of the Budget Committee is to review, discuss, and make additions or deletions and approve the proposed budget presented by the Budget Officer. The Budget Committee's role is not to make management decisions, such as establishing or eliminating specific programs or services. The proposed budget for the URA, which you'll see at our last meeting that's scheduled for May 29th, has been prepared according to the timing of the approved projects within the plan. It is not the responsibility or role of the Budget Committee to determine the timing of the projects or to approve the projects that have already been adopted by the URA board. So projects being in our CIP as well, that's in the proposed budget, those are generally set by master plans and planning that the city council has done throughout the year along with staff and the community. So those are not really up for a whole lot of discussion. We will discuss them as you like, but as far as eliminating projects, those are already, for the most part, funded and part of the balanced budget.
What's the CIP?
Oh, sorry, Capital Improvement Plan. Thank you. Okay, so our next order of business is to elect a committee chair and committee vice chair.
What's the role of committee vice chair?
In case the chair is unable to attend.
I make a motion to nominate Lou Mason as the Budget Committee Chair.
Second.
Do you accept?
I would accept.
So motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
It's unanimous, Mr. Mason, yet again.
So for
You
vice
did it
chair?
again, didn't you, Lou?
A party afterwards.
This is a fabulous job.
So for vice chair, please. Any nominations?
I would like to nominate Jennifer Gilbert.
Second?
I second.
Do you accept? I'd rather not.
Okay. Another nomination, please.
I'll nominate Steve Toski.
Second?
I accept.
Okay. That was seconded by, did you get it? Counselor Sundin.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion for Steve Toski to be a vice chair and a second. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Great, thank you. Okay, so now it's time for public comment. For those that want to make public comment, please keep your comments to 3 minutes. As a reminder, this meeting is for the purpose of presentation and deliberation of the budget. Please keep your comments relevant to the budget. Any public comments?
First, I would object to Jennifer Massey appearing. Not only does she have the conflict that she mentioned, but she also has a lawsuit against her. In any city but this city, it would be required. Recusal would be required. This is the only city that allows an employee to be or a family member to be on council. So I think that's a huge conflict. That also makes it impossible for her she should not be part of any of the budget hearings. And I also want to make certain that any legal fees that are being incurred that happened during Massey, that happened due to her election interference, are being paid by her personally and are not being paid by the city. I do not think that any public dollars should be used to defend Massey or frankly the council, because you're also part of that. So if you did something wrong, you should be responsible to pay for it individually out of your own personal funds and not using city funds. And I would also like someone to address what the fees are and how much over budget they are for this current fiscal year based upon those lawsuits. I'm also aware of a letter that the Kiwanis sent to the council that asking you to cancel Citizens Day in the park and give those funds to the food bank. I fully support that plan. The Treadway scam management fee is almost $9,000 for a few-hour event. Think of how many people that could be fed for that money. And if you add in the other expenses for that day, it's probably close to a $30,000 a day. And this time of need, I think that money is better spent elsewhere. And I think the food bank would be a better base. So I think you should just cancel the whole event. I also wanted to ask about the $453,000 that Treadway claims that they made off of Halloween Town, and that has been transferred to the general fund. In 23, E2C gave $120,000 to the general fund. Their proposal was to give $300,000 for 2024. Surely you're not going to tell me that you got less money than what E2C proposed, right? You didn't go through this change and more transparency to get less revenue, right? The number that you've gotten out of tourism is not zero, is it? So I would like you to confirm that number and that in fact it is zero. I would also like to tell me how on your budget line, you are now projected to lose $106,000 in this fiscal period on tourism. Your revenue versus your expenses are short by $106,000 in your budget. That's ridiculous. This is a scam. This is a bad company. It has been, and I'd like to know how it is that you're projecting that you're going to lose money on this. Would you be surprised to know that Treadway took out $500,000 in revenue and added zero new assets?
Time up.
Yeah.
Time's up.
It's actually 5 minutes. So
No, it's 3 minutes.
It says in your agenda 5.
It's 3 minutes.
It's 5. And it says on the agenda 5, so you don't get to change it.
It was posted
It's
online.
5.
Yeah.
It was updated.
It says 3
We've
minutes.
When I
updated
looked
it.
at it said 5. So I also 2 years ago requested to see source documentation for the city's banking information. Steve Toski asked for it last year. It was a motion and it was confirmed and voted on unanimously, and you've not provided it. Why in 2 years had that not happened? That's like budget 101. That information needs to come out. It's been 2 years. It's not been provided. I'm very concerned that that number has not been done yet, and it makes me very concerned. And finally, I do want to address the comments about the public safety fee that nobody seems to know about. I would direct you to page 15 of your budget committee, where it says that for fiscal year 25, it was assumed there'd be a passage of a public safety levy or an increase in the public safety fee. Again, I don't know who makes that crap up, but it's in your budget.
Any other public comments?
Can I comment as a citizen, or how do we make comments as a?
At the, when we're done with the presentation part, we've got a roundtable for all of you, and we'll give you about 10 minutes. We've got that built into the agenda.
Okay, I'll wait till then.
Oh, and by the way, you're wrong. Here's the current contract that for the agenda. On your website, it still says 5 minutes.
Thank you. Okay.
Any other public comments online, virtual?
Do we have anybody online?
No.
Okay. You all have in front of you last year's minutes. And unless somebody needs more time to read them, I think we've all looked at them. I'd like to ask for approval of the minutes. Take a motion for approval.
Motion to approve the minutes.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, minutes for last year, May 2nd, 2024 are approved. Gloria, do you want to give the budget message then?
We'll do that. Thank you. Okay. Honorable Mayor Massey, members of the City Council, members of the Budget Committee, members of the St. Helens community. We are pleased to present the fiscal year 2026 City of St. Helens proposed budget. Once again, this year's budget process has proven exceptionally challenging with difficult decisions necessary to maintain the city's financial health. The City Council, with assistance from the Budget Committee, must make some difficult decisions to preserve general services that the community needs and expects and maintain reserves according to policies. Staff has strived to present a balanced budget whereby anticipated expenses aligned with projected revenues while funding the city's desired services throughout the community. Just as in our message for the last 2 years, the fiscal reality is that there is more demand for services than available funding, and the city must prioritize its resources to achieve the highest outcomes. For fiscal year 2025, with an eye toward optimizing and maintaining services, the general fund budget was infused with non-recurring revenue in addition to not funding 2 ARPA-funded positions. The use of non-recurring revenue is not sustainable and is not contemplated in this fiscal year 2026 budget proposal. As in previous years, this proposed budget is constructed to provide desired services to our community, utilizing available resources. There is clearly a deficit in resources. The Columbia View Park improvements and URA waterfront improvements that include the downtown infrastructure project are nearing completion, just in time for the 13 Nights on the River concert series, 4th of July celebration, and Halloween Town 2025. This infrastructure investment will serve as the catalyst to attract investment in the riverfront district and improve the city's finances and livability. In addition to these projects, the sale of a portion of the city's industrial business park and resumption of paper-making operations at the mill in time for the property to be back on the tax rolls for fiscal year 2026. As a result of the declining fiscal health of the general fund and the lack of sustainable revenue sources, the S&P, Standard & Poor's Global Ratings downgraded the city's credit rating for borrowing from AA to A stable. It would have been worse without the assurance that the city is and has been looking for stable revenue sources. The following is a summary of changes for the fiscal year 2026. The general fund is experiencing a $3 million plus shortfall to maintain a 20% reserve fund balance according to the city's financial policies. For fiscal year 2025, $2.5 million from non-recurring resources was allocated to the general fund. This was a one-time fix to give the city time to make decisions for additional revenue to support general services. Expenses within the general fund are budgeted at an overall increase of about 2% over the fiscal year 2025 adopted budget. This is primarily in personnel services. Resources within the general fund, as noted during the fiscal year 2025 budget process, to continue to fund the rising costs for police services and to continue to provide all general services that the community needs to be a thriving community where people want to live, work, and visit. For fiscal year 25, the message noted that there had to be either the passage of the public safety levy or an increase in the public safety fee that is dedicated to police services, and that the use of one-time revenue coupled with the loss of industrial businesses requires new revenue sources to maintain the city's long-term fiscal health. We dedicated one-time resources for fiscal year 2025 with the understanding that either a successful passage of the public safety levy or an increase in the public safety fee would be necessary. For fiscal year 2026, there is a proposal to implement a general services fee. The fee will be used to sustain all general services and maintain a 20% general fund reserve balance. As previously noted, expenses within the general fund are proposed to increase about 2% over fiscal year 2025 adopted budget. Assumptions include a 2.5% COLA adjustment for ASCME and St. Helens Police Association union employees, as well as unrepresented employees. The union contracts are currently in negotiations. Other personnel-related costs, such as insurance, will increase 5% to 13% in January of 2026. City employees share in the cost of medical and dental insurance. Oregon PERS retirement updates rate expectations for all jurisdictions every 2 years. The PERS rates increase for the next biennium will begin July 1st, 2025, is between 2.5% for the general services and 3.41% for general services, police and fire. Projecting future revenues and expenses is challenging as there are many external forces impacting the city. The forecast, particularly in future years, assumes a modest 1% growth in materials and services within all general fund departments and a 3% increase in personnel services. Personnel services include not only wages, but insurance and retirement benefits. If wages, PERS, and insurance collectively rise above the estimated 3% growth factor, the forecasted ending fund balance, which is the purple bars in the graph that is in the document, will deplete revenues more rapidly. The only significant change in the general fund is adding a full-time IT manager position. This will phase out the contracted IT management and will support the in-house IT specialist that is primarily dedicated to help desk activities. Ending fund balance and reserves. The city's adopted financial policies strive to maintain a minimum reserve fund balance of 20% in the general fund. This policy is indicated in the graph as the yellow line. Based on the model, the city has dropped below the policy and without adjustment will exhaust the fund. It is imperative that the city make the necessary adjustments to align revenues with expenditures and maintain the long-term fiscal health of our community. The proposed budget is balanced with a place marker in the general fund to show the amount needed for the general fund to have a 20% ending fund balance. We will be presenting a general service fee and additional information for the committee to consider. The above graph shows the reserve fund balance with the insertion of the place marker amount needed for the percentages shown. So for the special revenues funds, tourism, the tourism program funding will continue to be held in the tourism fund. The city will continue to receive lodging tax revenues into the fund along with other dedicated and reserved revenues. The events production will be managed by the third-party contractor, where the contractor will manage the day-to-day operations of the program. The contractor will be responsible for producing income and expense reports for the city. In community development, this fund holds the city's community and economic development projects, including industrial business park activities, the central waterfront development, riverfront development, and the forestry program. The fund has seen a large influx of funding from grants and loans in relation to the development of the riverfront property, industrial business park, and central waterfront. These projects are and will be instrumental in economic development and economic recovery, helping to attract commercial and industrial businesses as well as tourism. For fiscal year 2026, the major activities will also include finalizing the sale of a portion of the city's industrial business park for paper-making operations and begin construction of a new electrical substation at the mill. The substation project will be a pass-through loan from Business Oregon for PGE to build a substation on a portion of the mill site. The purpose of this project is to support economic development opportunities at the industrial business park. For community enhancement, the fund will continue to be used for grant appropriations for specific departments such as the library, parks, recreation, and others. The fund is used to help track grants and resources outside of the general fund. Most significant activity has been in support of recreation programs and a grant from the Department of Justice for forensics computer and programming. For streets with limited funding available, streets projects are limited to general street maintenance. There is a planned transportation master plan in the CIP to inform us of current and future projects and improvements that are required beyond general maintenance. For capital improvements, capital projects, the SDC funds, the city collects SDC systems development charges to offset the growth impacts on our utilities and public facilities, streets, water, sewer, storm, and parks. Not all projects are SDC eligible, and the master planning process identifies which projects are or are not eligible. Within the capital improvement plan, the CIP portion of the budget document, you will find SDC eligible projects projected over the next 5 years. The most notable project anticipated in the next fiscal year will be for a water reservoir and sewer system capacity projects. These projects will span multiple fiscal years. For the Public Safety Facility Fund, the fund is dedicated to the construction of a new police station. In fiscal year 2026, the city will be required to pay arbitrage because the proceeds were kept in the local government investment pool and substantially unused for construction within the 5 years from the time of receipt of the bond proceeds. Now the city must return investment earnings to bond investors. Additionally, even though forecasts are conservative, we have not experienced expected growth. This has resulted in less receipts of public safety facility fees than budgeted for fiscal year 2025. and receipts were less than the debt service. For fiscal year 2026, we must increase the public safety facility fee to cover debt payments. When the economy begins to recover and building increases, we anticipate a decrease in the fee. For the enterprise funds, which is water, sewer, and storm, to meet the need of the city's drinking water program, rates will need to be adjusted for fiscal year 2026 as recommended in the 2021 rate study. The proposed budget includes a rate adjustment of 2.9% for fiscal year 2026. These rates are a result of an updated water master plan that identified new capital projects that are reflected in the 5-year capital improvement plan. Some capital projects noted in the master plan have been deferred intentionally to reduce the burden and maintain a positive cash flow balance over the forecasted 5-year period. Annual maintenance costs have also been reduced to preserve the fund balance over the next 5 years. The effect of the rate adjustment on the average household will be an approximate 75-cent increase. An updated rate study is budgeted to occur in the fall of 2025. For the sewer fund to meet the needs of the city's sanitary sewer program, rates will need to be adjusted for fiscal year 2026 as recommended in the 2021 rate study. The proposed budget includes a sewer rate adjustment of 8.1% for fiscal year 2026. The city's updated water master plan identified many deficiencies in the collection system. In an effort to minimize the burden to ratepayers, the city is working to prioritize the greatest system deficiencies and defer other low priority projects to future years. This coming year, the city will continue to address a $10.4 million sewer main upsizing project located in a basin that is currently over capacity. The capital improvement plan lays out the planned projects over the next 5 years. There is anticipation of related debt issuance that has been incorporated into the rate assumptions. The effect of this rate adjustment on the average household will be an approximate $2.43 increase. An updated rate study is budgeted to occur in the fall of 2025. And the sewer water program rates will need to be adjusted for fiscal year 2026. The proposed budget includes a 19-cent rate adjustment for fiscal year 2026. The city's updated storm master plan identified both capital projects and maintenance needs necessary to adequately operate the system. The effect of the rate adjustment on the average household will be a 19-cent increase. An updated rate study is budgeted for the fall of 2025. Internal service funds, the Public Works Operations Fund provides facilities maintenance services for city facilities and supports the engineering division of the Public Works Department. The equipment fund is used as a mechanism for Public Works to save for future purposes for large equipment. The water, sewer, storm, and street funds will contribute to this fund. Staff have performed professionally, creatively, and collaboratively in preparing this budget. We thank them for their hard work. We also want to thank the City Council and the Budget Committee for their time and hard work ahead in reviewing this budget to ensure the priorities set forth in fiscal year 2026 reflect the objectives and priorities for the community. Respectfully, John Walsh, City Administrator, and Gloria Butch, Finance Director and Budget Officer. Okay. Do we need a break or anything? We've got water. There's some cookies and sandwich rolls there if anybody needs anything. We good to go?
Okay.
Okay. So if you do the next slide.
Thank you, Gloria, for that budget message.
You're welcome.
It was very thorough and said a lot.
Yes, it does say a lot. So our challenges, as the message says.
Is this a page from the budget?
Yes, this one is not from the budget document. This is without I referred to the, on page, if you look on your budget document on page,
Just go to like general fund.
41, yeah. Most of our discussion is going to center on the general fund tonight. So if you look at page 41, it's that highlighted service support revenue. So this is how much we need to get to a balanced budget, to a balanced general fund. So without that, this slide shows that we are a negative 7% in our general fund. Our ending fund balance is negative, and we wouldn't have our reserve. So, you want to do the next slide? So there, that shows how much we're looking at for support services for fiscal year 2026 and the following 5 years. Okay? This is what we'll need to keep our general fund at least to a healthy. Next slide. So if we did a general service fee of $20, you can see there our shortage would still be 1.7 million.
Yeah, it's like about it's some money for $10, right? You're talking.
So you want to do the next slide? At $42.10, we get to 18% reserve. So we're only short $116,000, and that would give us 18% reserve. And last year, when the proposed budget was approved, we were about 15% was approved. So this would get us to the 18%. And for future years, it shows on on page 20 or 38 of your document. So at $42.10 general service fee, this year, fiscal year 2026 would be 18%. For fiscal year 26, 27, we're looking at 21%. So based on our analysis, we're looking at the high likelihood of a declining fee. So you can see there in 26, 27, the forecast would be a $37.90 fee, and then just declining down. And to about the 8 to 10 year mark, where it'd be about $25 and less. We have not forecasted yet a sunsetting of the fee, but depending on the development and how the city grows, how the economy improves or not, that will all factor in whether or not and how fast we can decline that fee. So the hope is we decline it and eventually sunset it. questions on that?
We could also reverse engineer it, right? So that we
Yes.
start lower and then see how the economy does. And if needed to increase, we could increase as well.
We could.
I have questions. What are the forecasted revenues based upon that would allow us to do a gradually reduced fee? What are those assumptions?
The assumptions is on growth. So if, on the right side of that, you see the number of units. So
Yes.
I'm calculating a 1% growth, which is super conservative because our economy right now is not very robust. Our building and developments have been down this year considerable. So I'm doing a 1% growth factor.
So you're assuming, and may I ask another question? Are you assuming that is housing growth? Is that basically, so when you're saying per unit, another unit of housing?
It's
Yes.
EDU, right? It's an
Okay.
EDU,
Yeah. An EDU, correct, yes.
apartment.
A
or
dwelling unit.
Right. Any dwelling unit, house, apartment, condo, whatever.
Right.
And then is the general service fee attached to what vehicle, what collection vehicle?
So any fees would be billed on the utility bills. It's not a utility fee. It's just the mechanism of billing it. And that way it's more efficient. We don't have to have a separate billing system just for that fee, which would be expensive. And then the processing of it. So everything about it would be for efficiency.
So there would be, and what we're talking about is on the water utility, there would be this fee.
On the utility bill, which is currently water, sewer, storm, and public safety facility fee.
Okay, all right, and then I know there's a lot of concern among our citizens about having the city council vote on these sorts of fees and not allowing the citizens to decide themselves whether they want to incur a fee like that. And then there's been talk of potential legal challenges. You know, right now, I don't think there's, I know a lot of cities are using utility fees as a means of raising revenues.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, I just want to, maybe this isn't the right time to have the discussion about that, but we may draw a legal challenge if we're going to end up doing this, and there may be other ways we want to put it to the people. I'm not sure. Just throwing it
I
out
was just
there.
reading in last year's minutes that you put it, how perfectly legal it was to do that.
Well, okay, by saying it's perfectly legal,
You said you researched it and that it was legal. It says it in the minutes.
and that is correct in that things are legal until they are challenged and become illegal. And so when you have something like this occur that is being done and nobody has bothered to challenge it, and there's no law against it, it's legal. It's like, for example, it used to be legal to do cocaine and until it became illegal. Then it was illegal. And so what we could end up with if we do this large increase is we could end up with a legal challenge to our strategy. And there are a number of potential strategies that could be used to say to the judge that this is unlawful due to whatever reason, have the court then decide. So right now, yeah, if there was a law against it, I would say we can't do it. You know, if there are the people going to come in and probably say it's illegal, you can't do it, and I'm sure they're going to have arguments. But right now, there is no court decision on it. So that's what I meant to clarify.
So if I may, I think what you're asking, is there any precedent in Oregon to adopt these public safety fees on the utility bill? And have there been any legal challenges in the past? Because that could help inform this discussion and also what the risk is for the city to adopt this fee. Obviously, if there was a risk that the city adopts the fee and there's a legal challenge and then that voids the fee in some way, then that's not a good strategy. And so that's something that I can look into. Right now, I know that League of Oregon Cities just did a survey for the cities across Oregon about what their public safety fees are currently and how much they are. And so that was a document I was just looking at. I could provide to the budget committee that would show you what other cities are doing and how much other cities are charging on their utility bills right now. Does that?
Do you have a ballpark of how many that you had identified just in general? More than 6 or 12?
The League of Oregon Cities did a survey within the last couple of years, and it was a lot of cities with fees ranging from $5 to $15 to $100 on a monthly amount. I remember the city of Jacksonville caught my eye because it was a very high fee. But I think that could help maybe give the city comfort about this approach and that it's been done and it doesn't appear to be challenged. And also, yeah, so.
I have a
Yes.
question.
Go ahead.
With the service fee, would that go into the general fund?
Yes.
Okay, so that would also,
It would be a separate fee from the current public safety facility fee.
okay, and then, what are we basing discussion off of? Are we having a discussion about the general fund where the police are in and somebody needs to recuse themselves?
No.
What's the definition of discussion for us sitting here?
I thought right now there were questions about, I thought what we were being asked if there were questions in particular about this fee. And that was the question.
So we'll, like I had said earlier, we'll have a roundtable, so each of you can have, kind of voice your concerns and thoughts, and we can do that. As far as a conflict of interest, Mayor Massey has already declared hers, and so we don't need to do that again.
Yeah, and I'm advised by legal counsel.
No, that's not what I'm asking. She said she wasn't going to be involved in any discussion that could affect the police department. The general fund
Okay.
is the police department. So I'm trying to figure out what do we feel is discussion time? Because she's discussing right now is the service fee.
I think at our next meeting, we'll get into specifics on each department, including the police department. I think that would be discussion as far as I'm concerned.
I think I see Jenny's concern on this, and at this point,
So if
I
I
don't
may.
see asking a question if it could be structured differently.
Right, so this is a blanket discussion of the general fund. It's not specific to the police department. So it's all departments and all functions of the general fund. So if we were talking minuscule about the police, then our attorney can advise us about
I
that.
guess I don't agree because we're talking about the service fee, which would affect the police department, which if she's discussing that, it goes into if she has, I guess I'm not understanding what discussion is defined as. Maybe you can clarify.
In general, when the discussion is focused on an area where it has an actual conflict or an actual financial impact. So when there is a discussion that's specific to the police department, that is when Mayor Massey would have an actual conflict of interest. But as a general matter for the generally affecting the city, in addition to the police department, that's considered to be more general in nature and not something that has been found to have where she would have an actual conflict of interest.
But we have the say as the committee where we feel comfortable with her discussing, correct? So it would technically be up to us.
I don't believe that the committee has a say.
We do. If we can decide we're fine with her talking, but we do have to say over it because she's declared conflict. She doesn't just get to say I declared conflict. We get to decide where the conflict is from there. What we're comfortable with. That's why I'm saying, are we comfortable with the amount of discussion that's going on with this? I want to deal with this now, so we're not stopping. Like, is this a discussion where we have somebody that's declared conflict?
There's a general discussion right now about the budget, and Gloria is going through the general discussion about the budget. And so that's where it is. If someone is not comfortable, then you do not have to participate in the discussion. But right now, we're just having a general discussion and it's not focused on the police department.
Well, I think her concerns are noted, and forewarned is forearmed. And my opinion is, this is just my individual opinion. I don't think there's anything that we can do as a budget committee to say, we vote you off the island. And so I think that the mayor has stated her conflicts and we've heard other information. And then I think my opinion personally is, let's try to get through this budget message and get questions done. And then if the mayor has comments, people can keep in the back of the mind, there's a potential conflict there. And hopefully we can move forward, at least in general terms, trying to understand where the finances are. That's what I hope we can do.
That's well said. I appreciate that. And that is generally, so I am presenting to you what we see as some options. And we've got a little more of the presentation. When we get into making decisions and things like that, then there could be or potentially be a conflict, then we can deal with that when it gets to it.
So
But
not
as far
discussion,
as this discussion and the presentation, there's really not a conflict at this point.
And I do have some more questions, if I may, on this particular issue and how it relates to the other utility fees for the sewer and the, I think it was community development.
Okay?
If those fees of 2.9%, I think, and 2.3% would be in addition to this fee.
Those are utility fees, water, sewer, and storm.
So those are gonna go up in the help to, okay, so I just wanna make sure we understand that the type of
Everything is gonna go
increases
up,
that on utilities that we're talking about.
The sewer's supposed to go up till 2027, right? Like that was the continue to raise. It was like a 7% or something like that. I think I remember.
Right, the rate study went through 2027, but we're going to update it in this year,
Okay.
this next fiscal year, so that we've got a better idea. So the next slide, this segues really well into, I want the next one, please, not this one.
For the comparison.
14, yeah.
There you go.
Okay. So this segues well into what the attorney was talking about. And so I did a research on cities around Oregon that have service fees as well as their water, as well as their utilities and or a local option tax levy. And then I, just for curiosity's sake, I did their permanent tax rate as well. So on the far right of this is what the total amount, base amount of a $300,000 home, property taxpayer, and what they would be paying. So if you go down to the bold St. Helens, for the typical $300,000 home in St. Helens, you're paying $126 in just base fees right now, and property tax a month. Okay, that's what you're paying a month. This doesn't count usage. I know your bills are, your utility bills are more than this, but if you look up, the only one less than ours is Jacksonville. But I was unable to obtain their water, sewer, and storm rates. So you add those in and they would be higher than St. Helens.
They have a $79 fee.
And they have a $79 public safety fee. Yes.
So if we, and is this based upon considerations of if we do increase the fees?
This is what it is right now.
And they're comparable sized population, correct?
I did not compare populations or anything.
Okay.
The city of Jacksonville is considerably smaller. St. Helens. But their permanent property tax rate is less than St. Helens, but it's the only one that's less.
Okay, and so then if we were to add just the number on there to the 12640, that would get us a comparison
We would
on
be,
fees.
we would be right in there with probably about the average around the state.
Or could we get a copy of this?
Yes, I will send a copy of this out to the committee members.
I think this should be made, I'm only throwing this out here as a member of the budget committee, that we should be throwing it out there to the public. Because I think
Yes.
the public needs to see what it is we're thinking about doing and why. And how we compare with other communities in Oregon. And remembering that what it is we enjoy here, which is a very high standard of living. So that's my opinion.
I think you need to show the median income of these other cities too, to compare.
That would
agree.
be an interesting,
Yeah, I agree with that as well.
So when we do, just to recap too, when we do an optional tax levy, it operates somewhat like merchant service fee. So we don't actually get like every cent of that versus if we do a public safety fee or
Right.
something of the sort, a general service fee, we get every cent of that as well.
right,
Or it's also spread around. It's not just based off of.
It's on every EDU.
So Jen, can you put it back to,
Information or other options?
yes, please, page 9.
Okay.
So I did this just to kind of give you information about the cost of each of the departments. And I forecasted it out as well. And this is based on the 3% that I noted in the message. And so just to kind of give you some perspective about the costs of individual departments within the general fund. And again, I will send these out so that you're able to digest them a little more.
And, I don't know if this is the right time to bring it up, but at least something to suggest is that I know that, funding retirement plans is a big budget challenge for cities, not just ours, every city. And so every time we add personnel, we potentially carry a burden for a long time. So I think as we go forward in this process, having some information along those lines, because I know there's been talk about, what do we need as far as personnel are concerned? And I do think some assessment of what it costs us overall, not just the initial, but the long-term cost is something that to help understand.
Why don't we do all these discussions at the round table?
Yeah. And that would be more of a question to get back to you on.
Thank you, Gloria.
Okay, so the next page, please. So we looked at some other options. One was to reduce the COLAs to 1% instead of a 2.5%. There's not a whole lot of impact on that, but just on the base pay savings would be about $90,000 for the year. We also looked at the possibility of doing furloughs. And so based on my analysis, if we did one 8-hour day per month for all non-essential employees as well as public works.
Can you explain a furlough?
Pardon me?
What's a furlough?
Furlough is unpaid day off.
Forced day without pay.
Right.
You get Friday off, no money.
That would
When you
be,
get furloughs from jail, and that's a good thing usually.
so that it would equate to about $240,000 a year for just one day a month. And that's all inclusive salary and benefits.
So both those numbers, the 90K and the 239K, that's per year.
Yes. That would be the annual savings. There is either one of those options. There is things like equity that we have to think about. We are pretty much at base staff now since we lost the ARPA funded positions, plus a couple of the other positions that we didn't fill. The staff that we have now are keeping up, but you take another day away from that. There's going to be challenges as far as getting the work done. And then that often reflects back on the employees where the service fee, it supports the services. So just a little insight on that. We would likely get a bit more turnover in employees. We'd have some retention problems. And then with that loss of retention of employees, we lose some of our institutional knowledge. So we do gain that much from furloughs, but there is a risk of alienating a portion of the staff.
And that would count in union employees too, so.
Oh, yeah,
The union.
it's everybody, yeah. The only ones that wouldn't be affected is the police officers because they're considered essential.
You still have all your overhead costs for that employee, no matter what, and insurance and everything, so it's still a cost. You're just saving part of that
Right.
pay, so.
Public works are not considered essential.
They are considered essential, however, they would be put on a rotating furlough, so they wouldn't all take the same furlough day. There would be rotating staff, and so they would be able to maintain the essential
I just don't
services.
mind how we say that because public works is essential.
Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm wondering if it would be constructive and if we could, in our discussions, to also discuss a cap of pay increases. So for example, if we're going to be putting burden on our people to meet our obligations, continue with our staff, continue with services, that the administration is going to be under an obligation to not provide increases for a certain period of time.
There is a cap where everybody is on a pay scale and there's a cap, there's a top of scale. And you don't get any more than that, except for whatever the annual COLA is.
There was I was going over some historical information. I saw some pretty large increases in, I'm not going to go into particulars, in the 2021 timeframe, which was, I think, before any of these councilors' 10 years or the mayor's 10 year. And it was rather sudden and large increases that greatly increased the burden. And then now we're sort of continuing to saunter forth with it.
No, we're not. And I basically have some back knowledge about what you're talking about. And that was a one-time shot. That person is gone.
And I've looked, I've looked at the data and there's a lot of positions that I've looked at. And, there's like a 17.5% increase one year, another 10% increase another year. And then this is, I can cite you the names and I can talk about the positions if need be. I just want to make sure that that we can't have some sort of, we're gonna provide whole bunch more funds potentially. And next year we end up with a whole bunch of increases in pay. Because we're just trying to pay for what
Okay,
we're
so,
getting.
so I have no knowledge of any increases in pay other than the top of the scale.
I'll provide you the information and then you can
I
decide.
know that there's people that are in various spots on that scale and are not at the top of scale, so they would have that next merit increase. But as far as anything else, I don't know.
It's before you came to work here too, so,
I realized before I came.
yeah. So I'll go ahead and provide you with the data and then we can go from there.
So Gloria, in theory,
Mhm.
like some of the things that you have, like there could be, like if you're talking about furloughs and things like that, that you could do a combination of a general service fee with an reduced amount and some other mechanism that is an option as well to reduce that.
Well, yeah, because those two combined, they're left with 2.5 deficit.
So if you had like and by the way, it's great that we have a strategic plan for not just this year, but an actual plan. That's super helpful. So kudos for that, because I think we've needed that for a while. But like we could have potentially that strategic plan for 3 years, that if we positioned ourselves correctly, we could close that $3.1 million gap by fiscal year 2028 by a combination of some options that we have here. Right?
What Steve was saying, were you saying that if we implemented this, that there would be, you would like to see a cap on any raises for that during that time period?
I'm not saying an opinion, but I am saying that it definitely is worthy of discussion because there was a big increase in ARPA funds in 21 and there are large increases in salaries. And I mean, I can give names and percentages and it's big. And so these folks are still carrying these salaries and now we're paying for them. And so I want to then say, if we're gonna inject capital and revenues in by putting it on our people, I want the administration to turn around and start handing out raises is really what I'm talking about. That's a little bit more direct way of saying it.
Okay, I really don't know where you're coming from as far as that goes, so.
I mean, I can give you an example. I can
You-
tell you about the raises that
Yeah.
occurred.
All right.
And, I mean, one person went from like 137,000 to 175,000 in 2 years.
I think what I hear you saying is just to look into the idea of salary caps, since the city is looking to.
Well, I think what we
Just
did is we raised our
that
salaries up and we're very competitive in the state. That's also what this data shows. That our people make good money. We're living in a nice place and people make good money. So if we're talking to going to our people that are saying, our people, meaning the folks that may be listening to this, but one day they're gonna get their water bill and then they may say, what the heck happened? We're gonna say, look, we wanna be competitive. We have good services. I think the services are excellent from our staff. And that if we're going to ask you to pay more, we wanna know it comes with strings attached, that you're not gonna be asked for, in 2 years, we're gonna be back to asking for a lot more.
Okay, so we can have more of that discussion when we do the round. Oh, yeah, we need a break. Let's do a break.
5-minute break.
Yeah. Back on. Yeah, I didn't know.
You just kicked up even older. Did you put your coat on?
Sweating a little.
I'm always.
So where were we, Gloria?
Okay, ready? Okay, so if you'll go to the next slide, please. So mentioned in the budget message that the $10 public safety facility fee was insufficient this year to cover all of debt service. We were about $18,000 short, almost $19,000 short. So for next year, next slide. Next year, in order to maintain the debt service coverage, we need to increase it another 30 cents.
And this covers our approximate $665,000 in penalties for not building the police department.
So we're not going to use the public safety facility fee to pay the arbitrage. The arbitrage is paid out of the accrued interest that we've earned.
So basically, just to be clear though, all the accrued interest we've earned, we basically are paying it all back because we didn't.
Most of it, yeah.
How much is that?
It's for,
665,000,
yeah, no,
for 2025,
For
it's
2025,
is 100 or 565,000, right? Something like that.
so on page.
Thanks.
I think there's-
On page 67 of your document. There will be an accrual of $565,000 for fiscal year 2025 for a potential arbitrage. We figure it's going to be, when we pay it next year, it'll be right around $665,000.
Is that in addition to the 565 or is that
No,
altogether?
okay, next slide. So just so you know, we anticipate that the proceeds from the original bond will not be sufficient to fully construct the public safety facility. Apparently, this was known even before they got the original bonds for this, that there would be a shortage. So we anticipate that there'll need to be another $2 million loan to complete the project.
Does this include the potential purchase of the new property also?
Right, it's all inclusive.
Right, I just want to make sure it's not just like the bond, but it includes the entire the project with the purchase of.
Yes, including property.
Were you told how much the original estimate was short on the
I
actual?
don't have that.
Because, it was represented at one point to the public by John Walsh that 13 million was gonna cover the whole thing. But now, now you say that it turns out that really wasn't true.
Okay, I don't have any that past knowledge.
I got you. Just wanted to know if there was some additional information because I look at this as not getting things done when they needed to get done. And I can tell you that right now.
Okay,
We're talking about
Can we save that for the roundtable
Yes.
I have
discussion?
a question though. You said that it was known at the time that it wasn't gonna cover?
That's what I have heard. That's what I have been told, that it was known at the time that the project would need more than what the original bonds
Who
were.
Is there
told you that?
documentation on that? Can we?
I don't know if there's documentation on that or not.
Who told you that? John?
Walsh, yes.
Oh, you'll be here next meeting.
John had mentioned to me that there's a source of funding that he could.
Yeah.
For that.
I'm
I
actually
don't
here
know
at this
if he
meeting.
needs a grant or a loan.
Yeah.
He's on.
John's
available on Zoom. We just started talking.
Okay.
I heard Sandy say,
Well, good. You could ask John the question.
All right,
Yeah.
John, are you there?
Yeah, can everybody hear me?
yes.
Okay, great.
Did you hear my
Sorry.
comments, John?
I did hear your comments and thank you. And sorry for not being there in person today, but so the council initially obligated or there was authorized the issuance of 22 million in bonds. And that's back when we were building a public safety facility that had the larger courtroom, the court and all those operations. And, the initial $15 million sale was made to get the project going, and there would be a cleanup later on. But the project since downsized to just a police station. I won't say just a police station, I did, but a smaller project. So the 13.7 was believed to be enough at the time to build on the previous site. But time and construction costs and inflation kind of continue on and eat at that.
So John, do you mind if I correct the record on that a little bit?
Yeah, please.
So the original discussion with the council was for a public safety facility, meaning a police station. And that somehow morphed under administration into this building with courts and council chambers and everything else. Correct?
The initial discussion was about a public safety facility, yes.
In fact, that was the resolution of the council, was to build a public safety facility. And then it
Correct.
became something else, true?
It has been downsized due to the costs, yes.
Well, okay, I'm only bringing this up in our discussions today about how we plan and how we, as friends and as citizens, of what decisions we make about our development plans and obligations we're taking under, what we're told, what the public is being told, how much things are going to cost and what they're for versus what they end up being. These are things to reflect upon. And that was why I brought this up as part of our discussion.
Well, since John's on there, can he clarify Gloria's statement about knowing that we were going to be short in the beginning? Because this is the first I've ever heard of it.
Well, I also want to comment that anyone who remembers this time period, because I was on the council during this time period, we had an assistant city administrator and a different finance director who was the main contact person who planned the police station build and did all of the outreach, was at all of the outreach meetings for the public. So just putting that out there as well.
And I know that, and but that was a person who was working directly under John. And then I also, none of the council members on this council were members of the council then when these things were put in motion. As a matter of fact, Councilor Chilton, I've gone through the record. It was like one of your first meetings when you were being asked to vote on this without any background. So I think that the way I'd like to look at these meetings is that our council is trying to set the tone and direction. And then behind the council, you have the administration that is also working. And I want to make sure that our administration is working for our council and our people. And make sure that when we make plans, things are finished and done. So, and I'm not here to I'm here to assist our council in making big decisions.
So can John answer the question?
I think on that note, though, is it's important that the city has a lot of important matters to decide today and to discuss. And so not to.
I'm asking John, not you. Can John answer Gloria's question?
What was the question again?
She said that it was known in the beginning that we were going to be $2.2 million short in bonds on the police build. And you just found out. I want to know, because you said you don't know, You said John would know. I want to know why that we're just finding that out now. Can John clarify that that's the case? Was it known in the beginning that this build was going to be short from the get-go?
John, did you hear the question?
I did. And I think there's a couple of variables that are getting mixed here. And one was the initial scope of the project of the public safety facility, which, the council authorized 22 million in bond sales for that. And then over the past, and then subsequently did a $15 million sale, thinking that that would be an interim and we'd have a cleanup to build that facility. And then as we got further along in that, the planning of that facility, with the cost estimates coming back higher, we downsized, redesigned the facility, came out to be much smaller. And at the time, it looked like we could build it for what we had left in that $15 million sale.
John, this is Jen, but also we have to take into account that now we have to purchase the property, right? So that adds another potentially million to it. So
I think that's included in the 2 million that she
right,
says
but when we're talking about the difference of 2
from
million,
the original project, yes.
correct? Because now
Because we own that property.
correct.
So the point here is that the council was induced to provide a budget of $22 million. But I don't think it was for a police station, it was for a lot more. And that was a debt expenditure, which was gigantic. And now here we are years later, things still not built. And we're being told that because we haven't moved on the project, we owe another $665,000. And that's something under your supervision, John. And so I just want to make sure that we're cognizant when we talk about taking on industrial projects, we're talking about these things, that this is the backdrop of, it seems to me that there's been this, I don't know, I learned this word when I came to St. Helens, spendy. There's been this spendy administration tack, that is, we're going to have a $22 million police station. It's going to cost us $30 million. Now it still's not done. And it's going to cost us another $665,000. So these are things that we need to talk about. We're talking about how do we get our ship in financial order? How do we manage our projects in the context of a budget discussion? And none of it is to blame or to put pressure on any of our city councilors.
It's kind of frustrating to me though, because none of this would have been happening if we didn't have to fight an ALUBA appeal.
Well, the problem is
for
this.
a problem that was mitigated.
So we can talk about this, and
we all need to be on the same team, right? That's what you want?
What I want is for our town to follow its own laws and safety regulations. And that was an ambitious project that was known from the beginning to be ignoring the public safety of people. When I hear about, and our city administrator went forward with an unlawful plan, endangered people's lives, and it was shot down. And that's the problem we have. We have a problem with people not following the law, not looking at appropriate regulations, and trying to do things behind the back. And I can tell you this, under our ethics code 1509, whistleblowers are to be encouraged and supported. And by the fact that my wife and I came forward and we said, we don't want people drowning because our police can't reach our people because there's 5 feet of water. And that our own studies show it was going to be worse.
You weren't a whistleblower, you sued us.
I did sue you. And I went with.
Excuse me.
We can, sorry, okay,
Has nothing to do with the
I'm not gonna say anything
Let's
else.
get on to the budget
Well,
process.
you know
I'm
what?
gonna be quiet,
I
I'm
think
sorry.
it's good. No, I think it's good that you should say, why did our administrator, who was supposed to be
Okay,
building a
let's
police,
get on-
let me finish.
No, let's have a
Let me finish
Gloria
one
finish
thing.
her, then we can talk at the end. We have 10
Why would
minutes
our
at the end.
just one more sentence, please. One more
One more
sentence.
sentence.
Thank you. Why would our administrator, who's supposed to be getting this thing done, choose the one spot in town where it's illegal to do it? That's the point.
Laura, can I ask, everybody keeps talking over the top, and I just want to make sure I'm grasping this, what John said, because he's hard to hear too. The 2 million that we are short in the beginning, was that known when we asked for the public safety fee? That, I guess, is what I'm getting at. Did we still know we were short when we went out on that?
So like John said, the The budget for that was bigger than what we got in loans, okay? And where the public safety fee started, I'm not sure, John can answer that part, is all I know is from this point in time, it was known that we would likely need another loan to complete the project. That's what I have learned.
Okay, I guess why I'm asking is because now we're discussing possibly the general service fee, and if we were short with the public service safety fee, went into it knowing possibly, how would we know that we're fine if we were to approve?
Yeah, okay, so part of why we're short on the public safety fee and we haven't been able to accrue and build up a bit of a cushion with the current safety fee of $10 is because our growth and our development has stalled. The economy's gone south. All of those things have, we are not collecting as much as a whole on that, with that public safety fee as had been forecasted in previous years.
Lori, if we didn't have the arbitrage, would we be able to use that interest to help
Yes.
pay down? So that's also a double whammy because now that we had the fees, we could be using that and then additionally buying the property that adds to it. So that wasn't initially included on that.
We had a time that we could have used the interest earnings on
But instead
that,
we're just
that
giving
we
it back.
had to be in construction and
Right. So we wasted it.
yes,
We wasted it, is what we did.
yes.
Can I make one correction and just a little bit of history on the fee? Is that it started off as $3. And it was intended to kind of build up for the first little bit until we did the bond issuance. And then we did the bond issuance and then it went from 3 to 10. And for the record, I don't select the police station site. That's something that was selected by the council, through a series of a lot of public meetings. So
You should sweat the site, John, because it was unlawful.
Let's
I
move on.
didn't select it, that's what I'm saying.
Does that answer your question, Jennifer?
For now, yeah, thank you.
So we'll go to number 15. We've done 14 already. So we've taken our break. No, 15. We have taken our break, so now is, I think, a good time for us to start the roundtable. In the agenda, I've allotted 10 minutes for each, and I think that is kind of will keep us on task. 10 minutes is a good amount of time. If we need to revisit that, then we certainly can. It's the committee's pleasure on that. So, you want to start?
Sure, I'll start. So I had a couple things. One is looking at the IT services. I get the point of having more power, right? I get that. I think we're paying like 170,000-ish a year for that. And if we hired a full-time IT manager, it'd be roughly 110 benefits. But I would question if it'd be more advantageous for us right now, since we do have more power and we have IT, to actually use an FTE for a full-time grant writer. Because doing some research, there's a lot of money out there that can be for all departments across the city, just in general. And administering the grants are what the challenge is. So it's easy to get grants, but administering them. And so generally on a national level, it's like an ROI of, 3 times, up to 5 to 10 times of what the cost of an actual grant writer is. So it would be nice if we could, and I have a grant writer down here just by looking, 90 to 110 with benefits. Again, the ROI 5 times to 10 times. So something for the committee to possibly look at, because I think that could do well across the city. obviously, arbitrage is a concern of mine. Looking at the numbers there, the minimal amount seems like that will pay for the base to cover the debt service. But also in general, theoretically, if we were to employ, like I said, a combination of something, whatever the budget committee looked like. But, I think that there is, in general, when you talk about COLAs, that could be problematic for morale, but you also have like the furlough piece that you talked about and doing like a projection, you could reverse engineer a general service fee instead of like going for like the 46, you could have like the 200, and 40 for 3 years, and do something like this, maybe off a little bit because for some reason I had it up in the 300s for the furlough, but like 15 a month for 2026, 2150 a month for 2027, 2028, 26, 75. So, that with a combination would fully close that 3.1 reserve gap, it looks like, by 2028. So it would not only, balance the budget, but would also get us, out of trouble by some type of creative. I think that there has to be some good on the city's part too. I get it. We were talking about trying to do lean practices. The committee's been, or the council's been really, how can we make it better for staff and not be overly burdensome? But if we're going to go out for, ask the taxpayers for some money, I think we, in general have to kind of tighten ourselves too and show a joint effort here on coming together and still not reducing any services to the city. Just be kind of tightening the belt and everybody having to maybe fill in whatever they need to. So I, went through and just did math with all the different scenarios between, furloughs and COLAs and doing, a combination of what. But I think that maybe the committee could look at doing a combination and maybe a progressive reverse scale versus, and have it a check-in like each year. Where are we at? Do we have any additional revenues? If Arcadia comes in, we sell some surplus property. If we build the police station, sell the other property, how does that look like to go back on the public safety fee? Anyway, it's kind of my thought. It's just creative instead of more of a step up versus, and see how we do. Versus hitting it with the big dollars.
Okay, thank you.
Relinquish my time.
Okay,
Oh, you, the last time your comments were very good. And Counselor Chilton asked you to make them. You have anything you'd like to say at all? Okay.
A lot to chew on.
Okay, one thing, and maybe tonight's not the night to worry, but one thing, if you could help me personally understand, it's just kind of when this downward trend kind of started. I know it's not just one thing that happened that created this mess, but when did we kind of see this pattern beginning?
like a timeline of when the general fund started declining. Okay, I can put something together.
Helpful for me. And not that this makes me feel any better, but just doing a little research and realizing that we are not the only ones experiencing this and feeling this, that the school district's going through similar issues, the county. Reading this afternoon, 60% of counties in Oregon are facing huge budget shortfalls, millions of dollars, and many, many other cities. And just looking at some of the ways that they're handling this and very drastic measures, closing libraries, selling parks, lots of really undesirable things. So just, again, not that it makes me feel any better, but just knowing that we're not the only ones feeling this right now. I'm going to try to do a little more research too and see how they're feeling about handling it. I don't know. I do have concerns with all of the fees. I see the need. I see where it would help. But again, I think a combination approach is kind of what I see as the best possible scenario. I worry about the people that don't like fees just because they don't like them. The ones that can afford to pay it but don't like it. But I worry a lot more about those that are counting every penny, and it's going to hit them the hardest, and that people on fixed incomes and seniors that just even the $10 fee is hard for them to pay, so I struggle with the idea of everything's going up, as we've already talked about, sewer's going up, water's going up. This is just one more thing, so I worry for the citizens, and again, we all live in the city, we all have to pay it too, but I worry about that, so that's all I've got right now.
So the thought too was, I believe at some point in time, years back, there was, and Jen or Jamie might be able to give us a little background on that. There had been talk of, or it had been done, that a certain portion of the late fees that are charged on utility bills could be given to like the community action team in order to help assist for those that were struggling with paying their bills. So that's an option that we could look at.
Say that one more time.
Pardon me?
Say that one more time.
Taking maybe a percentage or a set amount of what is collected for late fees on the utility bills and give it to the community action team to use to help people that need assistance in paying their bills. Just a thought.
The late fees right now go where?
They're in the water fund.
Okay, water fund.
Aren't they used to pay people that are?
They're used for operations of the water fund.
Where does CAT get their money?
Pardon me?
Where does CAT get their money?
I don't know where
I think it's a state program.
I know it's.
They can go to the
it's
state and say.
nonprofit, right?
Yes. Going up.
There's many communities that have a not-for-profit form of some kind that is utilized to help and assist in payment of utility bills. Councilor Schultz.
I just have one question for you, Gloria. Which programs or departments would be cut and by how much if we do not do the general service fee?
Okay, so what you saw on that one page about with the information, I'll also send that. Yep, you passed it up, I think. One more.
That one.
There it is. So you can see by each department how much their budget is. So for instance, and there's some departments that are pretty bare that you wouldn't be able to function as a city if you eliminated them. So if you close the parks and didn't do a parks program, it would be roughly $490,000 for the year. The library, $890,000.
And then rec to get to that deficit that we're at.
Yep.
I have a question. The $14 million for the pass-through loan, who ultimately has the burden of paying that back?
PD,
Okay, so
it'll be a contract.
So the loan comes to us to get to PGE, and then are we obligated to pay any city money toward this project?
My understanding is no, but hopefully John can kind of give you a little background on that project. John, can you do that?
Yeah, sure. So the city was awarded a $2.3 million grant from the Strategic Land Investment Program through the state. And in order for PGE to take advantage of those funds have to run through the city for the entire construction, which is about a $14 million construction of the substation. And we have agreements in place that the city will be made whole in every way. We're actually going to sell that portion of the property to them for the substation. So there should be a revenue that comes off of that as well. So.
Okay, that answers a question. Thank you. I think that, the comments I had to make, I think Gloria, we really have a very big shortfall in our general fund, and that's either gonna, and so I think income sources are, we're either gonna need to get income or we're gonna have to make some pretty significant cuts. And I do think if we do discuss taxing people, there should be some discussion about drawing caps on spending. And I do think that we pay very competitive salaries. I'm observed that our economic future, according to a study just completed, is to develop waterfront recreation. And as a city of St. Helens, I asked the question whether any of the plans of this sitting council include the dumping of Portland's hazardous waste into the lagoon, and whether any of our financial plans in any way depend on it. I think we need to be talking about long-term financial planning. We're talking about a Band-Aid just to get us through the next couple of years, but what is our long-term plan? How much are we trying to get out of urban renewal, and how are we going to get there? And then I am concerned about the city of St. Helens being in the development business, and whether we should be continuing to develop our industrial property. I don't know what our debt obligations are going to be there, or whether we should continue to fund that. There were some additional revenue sources that I brought up last year, which was business license fees, rentals. I make the observation that one of the reasons why we switched our tourism contractor was try to realize revenues to the city. Right now, last year we received no revenues. And right now our budget says we are to receive no revenues from our tourism contractor. I believe that we should probably obligate our tourism contractor to put $300,000 into our pocket or be fired. Because that was their job in the first place. If we want to continue on, it's just they're going to run the program for our businesses, that's fine. But we are not realizing any income, and that's potentially, I think one of the people said they could bring us 20% of the gross. That'd be $250,000. These things add up. And Gloria, are we going to be answering the questions next?
Yeah, I'm gonna do, as I've done in the past, is request the committee to send me their questions by email preferably. And then I will compile a Q&A and present that at the next meeting.
Yeah, I think one of the things is that if we're gonna be a city that's dependent on waterfront recreation. We've got this beautiful waterfront that's unique along the river. I think this is a time to talk as a city council of, do we really want to even be thinking about putting toxic waste in the lagoon? Where does that fit into the plans? And let's have a discussion in that regard, because my personal opinion is we are not ready for that kind of a project whatsoever. And it's a very dangerous thing potentially. So I think that we shouldn't be making plans, spending money with the idea that there's going to be this big nest egg that comes along. That's one of the discussion points I'm hoping that we can talk about. That's all the comments I have. Thank you.
Councilor Hubbard?
I think we've got to look at the fact that we're a city and we're for the citizens, and we have three priorities: life, fire, and safety. That's what we need to take care of first, and that has to be without any compromise. I think we've been duped in a couple of ways in our taxes revenue. You get the Arbor Apartments over by Walmart. don't pay taxes, they don't pay water fees, they don't pay sewer fees. Usually $10 a door. So that's a huge burden on us. John Gunn now is off the tax rolls. Lost that. Counties took that over. So, you know, we've got a Champagne waterfront with beer drinking citizens. And all these dreamers have dreamt this up down there. And that's what we got. But we got nowhere to go. They need to be out of the development business. They don't know how to take it further. We're going to be talking with some people that might help, but we're still 5 years from turning a shovel out there with permits and finding money and all that, and the economy taking a hit as it's happening right now. So I think we're going to be sleepy for a while. But being a small business, I have to cut things if I can't afford them. So I think we have to look at every place to go back and find out where people can cut just to get thinner and lean and mean. That's where it's at. Also, what would be this would be a question I will probably write to you, but are there any issues with taking our reserves down to 5%, 10% or 5%?
Yeah, I echo that. What if we do take our reserves down? What
I'm
would be the-
speaking, please.
I'm sorry.
So if you could tell me what if there are any, you know, I'm sure there's bonding issues, but we can't get a bond now anyway. So if there's any other issues with that, let's not drain it, but take it down. There's times we have to do that possibly, but I think we need to cut things first just to get down to the basics and then look at that to balance it out. So.
And so the committee can make that decision. The only thing that we can't do is be negative. We've got to keep it balanced, basically.
Right.
And so good fiscal management says that, you know, you want some reserve, you need to have some contingency. But as the committee, yes, you can decide how much you want that to look like.
We could look at the history possibly of like where we got really low before or something
Right.
like that. We may have some history to tell us how close we could cut it.
And so I could give you some more analysis like I did on how much a particular fee or whatever would get it, where it would get us as far as fund balance.
Sure. Okay, Jennifer.
I think I'm gonna keep most of mine for next meeting. I am kind of upset to see the service fee brought up again. I feel like John brought that up last committee and he was trying to use the public safety fee as that, and we discussed not doing that, and now it's back again. And I think that citizens have been very, very, very clear they don't want anything raised that way. They, you know, so I'm gonna look at it a little bit more, and that's just my feelings on that for now.
I don't know much, I've got a lot of questions. I got a lot of thinking to do. I kind of agree with a little bit of what everybody said. So it's got a lot to digest and hopefully work something out. I'm sure we will. Won't make everybody happy, but.
Councilor Hubbard, the arbors, they're still not paying fees, or was that just the no development fees or capacity fees
I
up
thought
front?
they were paying water and are.
$10 a door, as far as I understand it.
No water and sewer? Yes.
Yeah, they do pay water and sewer. Yeah.
Full price.
Full water and sewer?
Price. Yeah, full price. I have it up right here. They have 239 active units. They pay the flat rate fee for water, sewer, storm, and public safety based on 239. Correction, the storm is based on their impervious surface units, which is normal, but they're paying full price for that whole complex.
If we were to put that business tax, business license fee, they would be subject to that, right? 230 on their units, if we were to
That's a
say.
federal project. You're
I don't
probably
know,
not
because
gonna
it's a
buck the
nonprofit,
feds.
yeah.
No
City
way.
code has an exemption on nonprofits for business licensing, not utility services.
Business licensing.
Is exempt for nonprofits.
Raise overhead for businesses. Small business is what we need to keep the city alive.
Excessive use fee is not, though, that could apply. That's been 2 years that it's been discussed, and nothing's been done with that either.
Council we talked about because the police are going there so often that after so many calls in a month or in a week, they would get an increase, they'd get a bill for additional services. We never followed up on
Yeah, I
it.
brought it up at
That's what
council
she
like
was
2
saying,
years ago, and then brought it up at budget committee last year, and then just brought it back up when.
It's a
May
fee
Day
for
came up.
service.
Yeah, it's for
There
individual
there is already in our municipal code
ability to do
a
it.
mechanism to do that.
So we could decide that as a committee too.
I'd like to look at that.
And do we know what the arbor is really, is it really a federal project or was it mostly state, wasn't it?
It's NOAA,
Noah? That's state, isn't it?
federal program, isn't it? I thought.
Yeah,
NOAA
that's
was-
federal, I thought.
Do we need to look into what the long-term status is of them, whether we can give them a fee? Are they exempt forever?
They're exempt forever.
We brought this up last year and nothing ever came of it. So if we bring it up again this year, is anything gonna come of it?
Well,
Let's hope so.
we had to put it into our municipal code. That's what Gloria was saying, which we've done now. So we can actually act upon it now.
For the excessive.
Yeah, I thought it was already in it. It was already,
Yeah.
there's a place.
It is in the code,
Yeah.
but there was never any decision to actually activate it.
That's what I'm saying. We talked about it. but
Are you talking about the chronic nuisance fee?
Yes.
Okay.
It's called
Another name for it.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think that's a chronic nuisance ordinance, so that when there is excessive police calls, then you can activate this the ordinance and you give them notice after a certain number of times, and then you can impose a fee or,
I understand.
yeah.
What I'm saying is we talked about doing this last year. And I think like 4 or 5 things we talked about, council didn't decide on. This was
My
one of them.
understanding was that it had to be put into the municipal code. So that's why I thought we weren't doing anything about it.
I thought I recalled looking it up and it was already in the code. And
It
then
is
I
in the
did
code.
research. I sent like the 20 different municipalities that already have it and then as examples. And then Wayne came back in and then we were gonna discuss it again. It's just remember the conversation, like to have it rewritten so it's each word people call for in-person crimes or person-to-person crimes. But it was already in our code, so there's a place that it would fall in line to it. It just had a different name. I was calling it excessive use fee. Other places call it the nuisance fee.
I think that just, I don't know if it's I haven't looked and I don't know if it's in the code yet, or maybe it is in the code, but I would say that that's intended, those fees are intended to just stop, to pay for the excessive services, and it's not necessarily revenue generating, it's to try to stop people from poorly managing their properties. But I think a question.
That's the problem as well.
Right, that's a question, problem as well.
Yeah.
But I think a question I heard is, when you adopt the public safety fee, can that apply to all properties, or are there certain exemptions?
Yes, it's per door. Yeah.
Okay, so then
Water meter.
for water meter,
No,
and so there wasn't a question.
We changed that. We changed that so that apartments would also, each dwelling unit has to pay.
so an apartment building, many apartment buildings might have one water meter. So with the fee, the safety fee currently, it goes for each apartment, not per meter. So,
It's just the fee, not the water usage.
correct.
And that's over like 6,000, like 6,100 plus, right now?
Right.
They do pay for their water usage, the entire water usage. They have water usage, sewer usage, plus the flat rate fees per living unit for water, sewer, and public safety.
So they're currently paying the
Yes.
$10 fee.
So, and when you're saying we brought this up last year, are you meaning the public safety fee or
No,
the
that's
fees?
the nuisance.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we talked about that and
That-
it just
We
went
talk
nowhere.
about that, it just never got.
Well, I mean, anyone can bring it up and put it on the agenda. It was my understanding it wasn't in our municipal code, so that's on me. But I didn't bring it up because I didn't think we could make the decision on it.
Well, it's been in front of council. Wayne brought it up and we discussed it in February again to put it.
In public comment, it wasn't on the agenda.
It came up in public comment, but there was a
We didn't
question.
have an official discussion.
Yeah, we didn't, yeah, you're right. We didn't have an official discussion. The only discussion was, could we have somebody look at it to see if in fact it could be reworded, the template that was given, so that it could possibly come back in front of council. So you're right.
Crystal was gonna look at Beaverton's policy.
Well, I provided, I mean, I think, I can't recall right now for an accurate number, but it was somewhere between 13 and 20 different municipalities. I spent like 2 years ago, an exorbitant amount of time researching this exact thing. And I brought it up to council, then brought it up to budget committee last year, and then Wayne brought it up again this year. And I think that it was even on our strategic planning, our roadmap that we had in February that it got brought up again.
So let's follow up on it
Yes.
and not let it drop.
Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
Yes,
So-
Counselor Gunderson, thank
So
you.
bottom line, we need $3 million this year to retain a 20% reserve,
18%, isn't it?
18%. Thank you.
A couple more questions. Did we have a property sale on Millard Road? And did that
It's
close?
not complete yet.
It's still in contract? Okay. And we had that in our last year's budget, didn't we? Expected funds?
I think you had it page marked or something.
Sale of surplus property, so it was more of a blanket surplus property. It, yes, included Millard Road, but it included other things, whatever comes first, basically.
Approximately how much is Millard Road if it closes today?
I think it was 3.5.
3.5? Okay.
3?
I thought it was 3.5.
And then also, I don't know if
Don't
we
count Coley.
It's 3 million.
John, you have a better idea?
But did we only
See the
earmark a
public
million
records.
for the general fund?
So
I think it was a one-time,
I thought there was a
1
one-time.
million, yeah, for $1 million. The rest was gonna go into, I believe, the community development fund. And then 1 million was earmarked for the general fund based on my recollection from last year.
But we didn't get any of it, so maybe it'll come up this year.
Well, and there was money that came in from Arcadia Paper Mill, 1.5.
That was my next question.
it hasn't closed yet.
Hasn't closed yet.
It is anticipated to occur this fiscal year.
We're under contract. Everything looks good right now, but.
Yeah.
Okay. We talked about a gas tax last year too, but I think that had to be a public vote. Scappoose gets a lot of money from the gas tax. Question, maybe I'm late to the party on this one, but did we ever settle the WANA credit union account?
Under current litigation, we can't discuss it.
Okay. And then
I
another.
can discuss it.
Okay, let's not keep going,
Yeah,
Lou.
we're not gonna discuss it. We'll do it.
That's
next
a
meeting.
non-starter for the city.
That's all the questions I had.
So
I mean, it is.
Non-starter, you mean there's no money?
No, that means that the city will lose that lawsuit if it goes into litigation and we'll have to pay fees. That's my opinion. So we can talk about all we want, but
Okay.
that's a very, very risky path the city's on. I'll tell you that.
Are you asking that, Lou, because you're curious if there was?
If there was money, yeah.
Okay.
It's not,
Or if it may show up this year, maybe we get an attorney to do it on a contingency.
or you may end up paying about $1 million or $2 million on the counterattack.
Are you funding it?
This is being recorded, right?
I'm not funding it. I'm letting the city know that, the city has a tendency to be very dogmatic and aggressive. If you like, I could bring in pages and pages of documents where the city itself is saying it's not our account, it's not our money. In fact, if we want to look up our budget from last year, we didn't have the money that came in last year in our budget. So I think it's going to be pretty hard for the city to say, oh, that's our money when we didn't even have it in our own budget. And then we're going to be saying to a judge or a jury that we're really running an entire tourism department off books. And how's that going to look? I mean, should we start talking about the facts of the case?
And I don't think it's
it's not.
the budget committee to talk about the facts of the case.
I know, I think it's a good thing we brought it up because some people say, oh, yeah, that's our money. Let's go get it. I'm saying, you should be careful about what you look for because what you might end up with is a lot of trouble. And what we're supposed to be doing is not be spending the people's money unnecessarily and in larks and wild goose chases when our own legal documents say it's our money.
Okay?
Are you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
I just wanted to follow up on the other question with the Millard Road and the Arcadia. Is that still in Because it's closing, that's still in the budget.
It's not in our next year's budget. We anticipate the mill property to close before the year end. Okay, check in for adjournment. Do we want to do another round?
What would be next time? What do you envision our discussion to be for next time?
So what I'd like to happen is that when we adjourn, you all give me your questions like we did last year and the year before. And then staff and I will go through those questions and answers, and we'll compile a Q&A and bring that back to the next meeting. And then after that, some decisions we will need some direction.
Will that also be the time for the public to ask questions
There will be time for public comment again.
in the next?
Yes,
So the public can ask questions at that point.
absolutely.
Okay.
There will be a public hearing next
So
time.
questions, answers, and then discussion and working toward a decision.
Are you hearing from department
Yeah,
heads?
what about department heads?
That is pretty much up to the committee as well. We can have department heads here if you like. They will be involved in answering your questions that you submit. But if you want them here and available, we can do that too.
What has been and I don't want to exclude the department heads if they feel they would like to come, but I'm wondering if there's already been some recognizance with them and that's reflected in the current budget, proposed budget.
What do you mean by recognizance?
Well, you ask them, look, we've got challenges in revenues. What do we need? And they've come back and sort of said, this is a number that we think we can get by with next year, that kind of thing. Whether the department's okay if we somehow adopt these expenses.
He's asking if you've already talked to them and that was included.
Yeah, that's a good way to ask it.
Yeah, so they're open to being here or not.
But
Most of them are
they've already-
probably on watching the meeting.
You didn't ask them while you were putting the budget together, I think is what Steve's asking. Have they already been talked to? Like, did they already give you the information on their departments? Is that what?
Oh, yes, they're totally involved in the budget preparation. Absolutely.
I think I guess my thinking is if they want to come and make comment, but if they would like to make written comment to be read to the budget committee, that's permissible as well. What do you think about that, Lou?
Or if we have a specific question for a department head, it'd be nice if they could be here on Zoom or here. Maybe Gloria, once you get the questions, if we have 4 questions for the public works, it'd be nice to be able to talk to them, or building permits, police.
Gloria, are you in contact with other finance directors? I mean, as Councilor Sundin said, I mean, this is a habitual problem, like a systemic issue across the state. I mean, really kind of across the nation. So are you in contact with other city finance managers to kind of find out what they're doing, like more on the, I'm sure that possibly on the stuff that you come up with, but like getting back to a creative way to try to manage all of this?
Right. So I'm the immediate past president of the Oregon Government Finance Officers Association. We have 2 meetings or 2 conferences a year, spring and fall. And it's a discussion. We do sessions about revenue and revenue replacement. It's a hot topic right now in our association, both regionally and internationally. I'm the Government Finance Officers Association representative, the National Association representative this year. And that is their topic that's one of their hot
I'm
topics.
just kind
as
of
well.
curious on a contrasting comparison as far as where our funds are allocated within each one of the swim lanes, right? Each one of the funds, how they're looking and if they have any of creative ideas or how they're approaching it as well. If you guys are having those type of conversations, right? For like populated cities and
So one of the big discussions has been for many years, and it majorly affects funding and your credit rating and grant funding for your utilities, water, sewer, storm, is that when you're maintaining the general fund by using an excess amount of funds from the water, sewer, and storm funds, you get backwards with your funding agencies and your credit rating because those utility funds are supposed to be self-supporting, and the user charges that you pay for your water, sewer, and storm are supposed to be used for operation of that system and for the improvements and growth as needed for those systems. So when you get in a situation where you're overusing those user fees from those utilities, then you get us in a situation where you get backwards with, you become unsuccessful in receiving grants. Your bond credit rating goes down, and so you pay more for loans.
right.
And that is always a discussion. And so that's something that we have to analyze every year, is to make sure that we're not overusing those.
In your opinion, are we overusing ours?
We are not,
Okay.
but we are at risk of that.
And the reason for that is it's not really sustainable like it is with property tax or private business coming in and generating the revenue, right?
Gloria, how much time do you want for questions? Because we were scheduled for a meeting on the 15th and maybe on the 29th. It's 2 weeks. Does it give you enough time?
So if we could have, this is Thursday, if I could have questions by, I think I had it on the,
Today on May 12th.
okay, yep. If I can have your questions by May 12th,
Monday,
May
It's
12th
Monday,
before the meeting, and I'll, yes.
Do questions already submitted count?
Yeah, I've got those saved. And the last question I think I have for today is like, coming up with some creative solutions. Those solutions also can be, if the committee decided, put out in November for the general election as well, right? So they could be put out for a vote if that's what the committee would like as well.
Along those lines, in the event there is going to be discussion about putting, for example, the water fees out to a vote. I mean, I think there would need to be some discussion of, can we make it till November, and then what are we gonna be looking like? If we are 3 million short, I think there are gonna be potential consequences if this doesn't pass.
What water fees are you talking about?
Utility fee, whatever it is, the $42.
The general service fee, because it's different than a utility fee. It's a general service fee and a public safety fee. They're-
General service fee on the utility bill.
Okay, got it.
Thank you. So if there's going to be a discussion about a general service fee on the utility bill going to an election, not in this committee or with the council, we're gonna have to have some idea whether, can we make it? I guess I'd ask that now. I mean, can we wait till then?
For one, I think it would be pretty unusual to put that as a vote. You can have the council do one or more public hearings before it's implemented, which would be a valid thing and certainly appreciated by the community. I think that that's, and you would also want to make sure that the community had a voice during the next meeting when you're considering that, so that you get an idea of what that is too. So there's going to be a public hearing at your next meeting. So that's an opportunity for the community at that time also.
I'm presuming Jen's talking about putting a tax forward in November, not a utility fee.
I think she was talking about a local option
No,
tax.
I wasn't. I was actually
Oh,
an
okay.
actual, like, putting out to vote to put in like the general service fee. Because of the fact that if we put out an optional levy, we do not get all of the dollars. But if we put it out for a vote to actually do a general service fee, where the understanding is we get 100% of every dollar, we could still do that, but that takes education. I mean, I don't want to leave money on the table. If I'm getting $1 there, I want $1 going to wherever I put it. But it could go out for a vote, not an optional levy. It would be.
It's not what utilities.
I'm not familiar with what the mechanism would be to do a general service fee on a ballot.
Yeah, I don't know either. Something to explore.
That's something that I would have to research.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't have any experience in that.
I don't either.
So
To my understanding,
Have to
that's
be
the
something
point
that we
of
have to talk
the fees that you put on bills is so that you don't put it out for a vote. So
Right.
I'm not in favor of asking the citizens to vote for a tax
Right.
and have a say over it. I'm not, and that would be a November thing. But that was legitimate. Like, how would we close out the budget if we were leaving it up in the air to it?
Yeah, I think the question would be, what if we wait until November? Is there gonna be a consequence that we should be aware of? I guess that would be the kind of thing that's the only question I have.
Yeah, so if you approved a fee, it got adopted, we go through the public process, and if we wait until November as opposed to July to implement the fee, there'll be that many months gap.
Then we would certainly have to decide whether to go at a lower reserve.
Right.
Risky.
Extremely, yeah. I'm kind of in favor of hearing from, I mean, I don't know what you guys think, department heads, because if we're talking about furloughs and pay caps and things like that, maybe we need to find out where they feel like cuts could be made. I don't know.
Yes. And so from what I'm hearing from everybody is basically that you would like to have the department heads here for the next
Available
meeting.
by Zoom is
Or
what it
available
said.
by Zoom, yeah.
And we'll
And
go
we
back,
can do that.
and I'll go back to timeline too. We pretty much know all of our questions that we're going to put on paper. Why don't you just give us a week? Then you have more than 3 days to research.
Yeah,
Maybe
that would be
next Thursday our
fantastic if
questions
you
are
could
due?
do that.
Yes.
That's fair.
And you're gonna mail out that other stuff to the
Yes.
committee, because that'll be helpful to.
We had talked about having that printed out so that you could take it with you tonight,
There's a lot
and
to take in.
we just, we missed that stuff. So,
You did great.
but we'll get it out
Email.
right away. Yeah, by email.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
8 a.m. on the 8th.
8 a.m. on the 8th, our questions are due.
And Gloria, I think Russ's observation that it might be helpful to have the median income in the cities in comparison to the fees. It might be helpful for the public to understand where we fit in on the ask versus.
Yes, I've got that.
Yes, thank you.
And Lou, I will not be here at the next meeting. I already had a vacation planned since October, so I will not be here at that one.
On the 15th.
Correct. I'll be out of the state.
Bon voyage.
Okay, is there anything else for the good of the order?
No, just a thank you to guys for putting this together.
Yeah, thank you, Gloria, very much. Thank you.
I join
Jennifer,
you and your staff, Gloria.
Jamie also.
Been very helpful.
Basically, the staff puts together the budget, the council provides policy. We've worked really hard on putting this budget together.
Or was this an award that was won?
What?
It says Distinguished Budget Presentation
Yes.
Award.
Yes.
You didn't tell us about that.
I didn't. I thought I had said something about it at one of the council meetings, but yes. The city has actually been receiving that for 10 years, 10 or 11 years,
Did you say it when we did the finance statement? Is that when you said it?
maybe.
Okay.
You're too modest, Gloria.
Yeah,
I know. Well, we applaud you.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's wonderful.
The whole staff works really hard on getting that award.
Okay, we'll see everybody on May 15th. Get your questions in by next Thursday, the 8th. Meeting is adjourned.